A very good evening to all of you. So, my name is Sahana Krishnamurthy, and I have my channel Mom Story by Sahana, wherein I have been giving a lot of information and creating awareness videos related to adoption. So, why are we here today? We are here today to talk about older children's adoption because of late I have been receiving a lot of queries and a lot of doubts related to older kids adoption. So, today with us we have Ms. Smriti Gupta and Ms. Meera Marti, who are the founders of WAIC, that is Where Are India's Children. So, they are going to talk to us more about and give us more insight on how this older kids adoption happened and anything and everything related around the older kids adoption. So over to you, Smriti and Meera. I would like to have know like about your NGO, that is Where Are India's Children, and about, of course, about both of you, like how you met and how you started this thing. A little brief about your NGO and yourself.
Hi. So, as Sahana said, my name is Meera, and I'm the co-founder along with Smriti and Pratima of Where Are India's Children. We are trying to create sustainable solutions to vulnerable children, especially living in shelters. I'm an ICF certified coach. I specialize in adoption counseling, coaching, and parenting adolescents and teenagers, coaching for parents of adolescents and teenagers. So I look forward to having this conversation with Sahana and hope to share some of my experiences with coaching and counseling of children, older children adoption. Yeah, Smriti.
Hi everyone, I'm Smriti Gupta. I'm an adoptive parent of two daughters, and in fact, as an adoptive parent, that is how I met Meera and our other co-founder Pratima, because we were all very heavily involved in counseling other parents who wanted to adopt. And then we came together to form our organization, which specifically, as Meera mentioned, focuses on ensuring that the abandoned and orphaned children in our country actually reach the legal adoption process. So adopting the children is the second step. The first step is the children first have to come into the legal adoption process. So that's the part our NGO works on. And as an adoptive parent, I do talk to a lot of other people who want to adopt, and I mostly guide people through adoption of children with special needs, or sibling groups, or children who are older.
Okay, that's wonderful. And I have been, like in a perception that I have, or probably many other, like people have in our country, that the first thing they think about adoption is let's adopt a baby. Basically, not even a baby, but a newborn baby. Okay, like we want a newborn baby. But of late, that like from this time I started, creating videos, I came across a lot of like parents and people who say like, yeah, we are ready to adopt slightly older children also, like now, but they are very curious about it, like how does it happen, does it even happen, because like I said, they call the orphanages or they come across certain orphanages, they will say like, no, we have older children, we will not give our children for adoption. So now they are very confused, they don't know where to go, how to approach about it. And we need to understand whether the older children adoption is even happening, or what is the rate that it is happening, like like maybe 1 in 20, or like 1 in 10, how is it? So can you just give us some insight about it?
So I'll go first. So yes, I think a lot of interest in older children adoption, and in fact, I've counseled parents who have adopted older children. Recently, in fact, a couple adopted siblings, and one of the siblings was 8 years old, and the other was 4. So this is very heartening to see because there are a lot of older children. I think majority of children today in CCIs, the childcare institutions today, are older children, and it is these children also need families. They also need parents to guide them and support them. Once they are we actually all of us, I think most of the time, think it's either a shelter or a biological family, but we are not thinking of an adoptive family for these children. So we are always trying different methods to restore these children, but adoption is one of the most permanent methods we could actually bring these children home and support them. So essentially, we've seen an increase in the older children adoption, and the process is no different from adopting babies. It's the same. You go to Kara, you register, select your age group, siblings or older children, whichever age group from 0 to 18, and do the same similar paperwork, home study. All that process remains the same. And we have seen an uptick, and I myself have counseled quite a few parents who would want to adopt older children. And it's, I think, very heartening to see that change. And hopefully more and more couples do come forward. Of course, there is that age difference of 25 years which Kara does have in terms of parents wanting to adopt older children. But I think that can be relaxed, and Kara does work around that. So it is definitely heartening to see there has been an uptick, and the process is the same. And hopefully more and more parents do consider adopting older children.
Okay.
Yeah. So yes, Sahana, as you asked, so first of all, you mentioned what is the percentage. So percentages are hard to say because Kara doesn't release that data. But what we can share is that anecdotally, we have probably counseled more parents about older children in the last year, couple of years than we have done before that. So if you just, talk about a trend in terms of, as you said, more people have been approaching you about older children.
Correct.
So I would say we are sort of seeing that as a trend, and we wouldn't know the exact numbers unless the data is actually released by Kara. And in terms of adopting older children, as Meera said, it's exactly the same process as adopting a baby, right? Like that's the sort of the beauty of the centralized process that we have now, is irrespective of where you are in India, irrespective of the age of the child you want to adopt, whether that's a 2-year-old, 10-year-old, 12-year-old, or even a 17-year-old. The process is the same. You register at the Kara website, you go through, entering your paperwork, you get matched with a child, and then you bring the child home. So it's pretty similar process. And in terms of people calling up orphanages and orphanages saying, no, we don't give older children an adoption, all of that, that's the part we are trying to fix. A lot of these orphanages, in our experience, and that's one of the challenges on the ground right now, because they are very accustomed to keeping children. And that's what I think the government is trying to change. That's what our NGO is trying to change. And for people who want to adopt older children, there are older children, in the adoption pool. They are waiting for parents. So sign up with Kara and go for it.
Okay, that's wonderful. So I had one more question in mind. Like of late, the waiting period with Kara for say 0 to 2-year child or 2 to 4-year child, it's been like 2.5 to 3 years. Like the waiting time. So do you think this is also one of the reasons that the older kids adoption, the trend is taking forward or picking up?
So I'll tell you a story about this. One PAP reached out to me, and they were originally considering adopting a very young child. And a few months later, they came back and said, we are open to older child. And I shouldn't keep saying older child because every child is a child until they're 18. But they were open to slightly older age groups. And they were, I think, also open to special need. And they said, what's happening? Is it just because of the wait? So I just laughed and said, no, I think you're evolving. So I don't know whether just having, a longer wait time in the smaller age groups. See, if somebody wants to adopt a really young kid, they'll wait 3 years. They'll wait 2 years. They will not change their preferences. I think what tends to happen is like a lot of people who get into this process, hoping to provide a family for a child with a sense of fairness, with a sense of justice, and people who get into it believing that every child should have a family. And when they realize that the younger children do have a lot of families waiting for them, but the older children don't. So those people may have a change of heart and they may start considering older children. Right. But I would say like it takes, it would take a certain type of mindset or thought process to do that. Not everybody would switch. But a certain segment of people may switch.
Right. But most of them, I think their mindset is such that they want to see every stage of the child. So many of them will, offer a younger one only. So in that way. So Smriti and Meera, of some time ago, some 3-4 months back, I came across one video on YouTube. And in fact, in the news feed also, I could see that between 2017 and 18, there were a lot of, older kids who got adopted and some kids who were in special needs also. So out of the total, I can't remember the exact number, but there were 273 or 274 of the children who were, returned back to the agencies. Like this category of children who were returned back to the agencies, they were from the either the older, like kids category, or they were the special needs category. So why do you think this happened? Like, what could be the, like reason behind that?
See, Sahana, I think firstly, when it is hard for the child, right? So the child has accepted to be adopted because the child's
Mhm.
consent is asked because they're older. Again, as Smriti said, I don't really believe the word older for a child, but just because we are to put things in perspective,
Mhm.
we're going to use that. So I've heard this. I've heard this even from the government themselves. The SAR visit, they say, older children are returned and they should be counseled. I think I have a different take, and Smriti probably will agree with me that it is not only the child who has to be counseled. I think it's more important the parent be counseled as much. And so I think it's a kind of a yes, the child has to be counseled for the fact that a family will be better for you, and a family will give you individual attention and things like that. But I think the parents need more counseling in terms of what to expect from children who are a little older. So
Correct. Mhm.
the returning of it is more from lack of understanding where this child is come from, right? So the child has probably spent pretty much a lot of their childhood or even a couple of years in shelters, and the child's mindset. So what the child has undergone, so maybe a little bit of trauma, the challenges. So I think parents don't try to really understand that, and they are in a hurry for the child to bond with them, call them mommy, daddy, whatever it is, and be this bright, cheerful kind of child all the time. So that is a false expectation, right? These children have gone through a lot, and it will take time. So I think the parents need a lot more counseling, in terms of what to expect, how to tide over this, because the child will thrive. Give the child time, the child will thrive, will find a foothold in your family, become an integral part of the family. But I think we're just in a hurry to have them do that, and that I feel is the biggest downfall of these cases.
Yeah. So agree with all of it. See, we definitely need to prepare parents better, and that's just not for adopting a 12-year-old or a 15-year-old or an 8-year-old. We even need to prepare parents better to adopt like a 3-month-old. So when I see the level of preparation that some of the international parents go through versus the level of preparation some of the Indian parents go through, it's a huge difference, right? It's a massive difference. For international adoptions, we expect parents to go through counseling. It's mandatory. We expect parents to get like a psychological eval from doctors. We expect parents to end up out and try to learn themselves. There is no systemic way of making them learn. And I think that becomes a challenge for a child any age, and maybe those challenges escalate a bit as the child's age increases. And because, and also there is this overall parenting culture in India that I think is very driven by parental expectations. How life should be, how child should be, how I should be, how you should be, right? And people need to learn to kind of like throw all of that away and kind of focus on themselves, focus on the child, focus on being the right type of parent for the child. And all of this parents need to be prepared for, so that children can adjust in the families, and they can take their time adjusting into families, and parents have the patience for that.
So you mean to say like it's lack of the preparedness with the parents, which is actually probably caused many parents to return the childrens, right? If I am not wrong, like what I understand. So in such cases, so what do you suggest? How do parents actually prepare themselves? Like, because parenting does not come with a like a manual or a rule book, so everybody has their own way of parenting. So what are those, like points, something like that they can keep it on fingertips, like like we can count it, like there are 3 things or the 4 things on which they have to be prepared about, or like in terms of like Mira said about the expectations. So the way they are expecting what they should expect. So how do they prepare themselves? So what are those, like key points?
So it's actually like asking to make the marriage work, what are the 3 points? I'm sorry, that's the equivalent of that, because There is no set rule. There is no set formula. It's not one size fits all. So I refrain from giving these tips to parents because children are evolving, right? We evolve, children evolve. So as Smriti and you also said, there is no instruction manual for these kids, right? Parenting by itself is hard, irrespective of how you have the child. Parenting by itself is, it's fraught. I won't say fraught, wrong word to use, but it has its own challenges, right? Every day there is something different about your child. Every day there is something new you find that you have to deal differently. So because we are saying these children are older, we are adopting them, there is something different we have to do with them. Yes, a little bit, but that doesn't say that, okay, if I do 1 2 3, this child will start hugging me day after. I think that is something which will not happen. It is, I feel, what, as a parent, when you are going in for to adopt an older child, all you can do is be there with the child, be present to the child. When I say present, doesn't mean standing with them all the time. It is present to their needs. So you have to be so in tuned to their needs. They need some space, back off, right? And you have to be watchful. They need something to eat, you have to give them to eat, because these children might not ask you that they want to eat. So these are some of the things you have to be watchful, because they will not come with a set this thing that if I do this, then this will happen. If I do this, this will happen. For all you can do 10 things which are extremely right, and it might not be the right thing for that child, that particular child. So there is no set formula, but I think one thing I would advise or suggest, counsel, is definitely be there for the child, no matter what they're going through, right? So that space, and the fact that they have come from elsewhere, they have made some bonds there, some friendships there. So just remember that, and you just have to be a little bit more intuitive to their needs. As parents, I think all the time we should be on our toes in terms of what the child needs. I think it works the same way, with the extra added this one, to say that, okay, they need this space, we give them that space, right? They don't want to talk to us right now, let's not take it personally, right? Things like that, I think you learn as the child comes home. So well, there's no size that fits all, unfortunately. I don't believe in giving those tips as you are asked for, and as I said, it doesn't work in a marriage, it will not work in parenting. So that's how I look at it.
So Meera, I'm gonna violate your suggestion a little bit, and I'm gonna give some tips, because I actually wrote some before.
Oh, okay.
We started this call.
Yeah, please go ahead.
So you're talking about preparing before adoption. So these are essentially before adoption, pre-adoption. So some of the things that I would recommend is, so let's say 4 things. 4 things I would recommend is, first is read about older child adoption. Right? Like if you search online, there is so much information available. Right? I remember before each of my daughter's adoption, I just went and put in their age, and I said how to bond. And you may not get precise article for that age, but you'll get something, in the range, in that similar range. And I found them to be extremely useful. Now, internet is sort of a double-edged sword. You'll also get like some of the really bad information. So you have to make that call on, what stories to read. But there are plenty of useful stories about families who adopted older children and how they help the child adjust, right? Like read about their personal experiences. In fact, once when I was educating myself about special need adoption, I went to a website which talked about, which had stories from parents who had adopted kids with special needs. And I think it made me so comfortable with special need adoption, just going through those stories. So I would say, read books, articles about older child adoption. Number 2, that's the first one. Number 2 is talk to other parents who have adopted older children. There may not be a whole lot of them, but for those who are watching this video, we are sure if you reach out to us, we can find some parents to connect you with. So do talk to people who have already adopted older children. They'll have a lot of practical tips. Then I would say it will be ready to unlearn some of the things about how children should be, how parents should be, that have been taught to us, from birth onwards, or what we have seen in our society, right? Like train your mental muscles to be your own person, to be, somebody who will respond to your child's need on your own. And in that, in my fourth point, I'll probably suggest something radical, which is if you have a circle of people around you who are not supportive of older child adoption, consider
because they already have some attachments, they have some friends over there, probably they're very like attached to their caretaker, and suddenly there are a couple is standing there, or maybe a single parent is standing there saying that I'm your father or I am your mother. So that transition, so how do we deal with that transition? Because what is the time, like obviously, like every child will need a separate, time window, like some will get adjusted in a day and some will take probably months to, like adjust. So how do we deal with that? Because I feel earlier, in the before Kara adoptions, there was one set agency where you could go gel with the child probably before, and then again, the transition would ease out. But how do we do that in the present, like system scenario?
So Sahana, first I would say this idea that pre-Kara there was more time for parents, etc., is not necessarily true. See, how much time you got to gel with the child, etc., really depended upon the maturity of the agency. So because one of my daughters was adopted in the pre-Kara process, and they basically gave us the child and said, take her. Like after all the paperwork, of course, after all, they're doing all the work, but it's not like, they told us to spend time with her or anything. And same happened in our second daughter's adoption. That was through the Kara process. So, and then I've also heard of agencies that do expect parents to come visit the child for a week every day for a week. So the child starts recognizing. Let's say somebody is adopting an 8-year-old child. Come, I'm going to be in the city for 2 weeks, and I want to spend a week just visiting the child every day so that the child is comfortable with me. So that is something you can ask the agency. I think most agencies would understand. I know of a couple who adopted 4 siblings, and they visited those kids 3 times before bringing them home. So that's doable. That's on the parent. And the second is, be prepared that there would be some separation, or there would be some anxiety. So even if you spend that week with the child or 3 days with the child, once the child leaves the environment that they know, irrespective of how good or bad that environment was, even they leave the environment they know, they don't know what you're going to do to them, that you're going to keep them safe, that you're going to protect them, that they need to trust you. That will take time, period. Right? So there's no way around it. So you have, like, in a way, you have to be prepared to, again, put in that time in the beginning and be okay with the anxiety on the child's side, on your side, to help the child transition. But I think people can definitely talk to the agencies and ask for a bit extra bonding time.
Yeah, I think that's important. I think to get that extra bonding time, and the fact that we as adults are afraid of change, right? Imagine
exactly
such a big thing for a child who's lived in an institution, and they see 2 strange people standing there and saying, "Okay, we are your mom and dad." I think the adjustment will take time, but I think going to the agency often, looking at them, seeing them, and not necessarily expecting them to exchange a lot of, have a very fruitful conversation, but just being around them, I think will help them a lot, because
probably getting more familiar with the child, and like the child gets familiar with the parents.
Exactly. Because recently one of the parents who adopted siblings, as I said, 8 and 4, they had a little bit of this thing that the agency didn't let them meet the children before, right? So the first day they went to meet was like 3 days before they were bringing home, and the children were very, very unhappy and sad, and it really tore their heart that to see the children cry. So I think it depends on the agency as well, but if the agency is giving you that chance, why not? And go and look at the child, just be there, present. It's like you're there everywhere, but not really interacting with the child, just so that they get familiar with you.
Okay, all right. That was, in fact, I think that holds true for, I think, every child who comes home, like irrespective of the age of the child, right? So, but I have heard, like cases where the child is carrying some past baggage, like some bad experiences, some bad trauma, and that is actually affecting the parents during the course of parenting. Like the child screams or hits the parents, or is reluctant to do anything. Even if the parent is willing to help, so the child is reluctant to like take the help, and during these times the child may hurt himself or herself. So as Meera, you are a parenting counselor, so I don't think this is only applicable to like adoptive children, but at times even the biological children will behave in such a way, like that they will be very stubborn or adamant, and they will not listen to the parents. So how do we deal with that? Suggest parents in such situations, how do they deal with it, apart from just as you said, being there is very important? So is there anything that they can do, like what would you suggest them?
See, the first thing is, counseling, as we said, we talked about, is extremely important. I think the parents getting the right kind of counseling, and counseling does not necessarily mean advising the parents. So, what kind of fears do the parents have? What do they feel will happen? Right? A lot of times, I think we go into something with an unknown fear that this will happen, and surely that will happen. So, I think if the parents can you know uh, more or less, it's all, I won't call it trauma counseling for the parents, but to say that, okay, this is something you have to expect. Let's say that, and based on the child, having how long the child has been in the institution, what kind of background the child comes from. So I think a series of counseling sessions with parents is definitely required, right? Even after the child comes home. So it doesn't end just after no pre-adoption counseling and okay, I'm all set to bring this child home. I think a lot of parents do that also. Okay, I've taken counseling, now I know how to deal with it. But as I said, every child is different. So I think when the child comes home, it's all the more important to have some counseling based on how the child is, based on how the child is reacting to things. What is the child looking for? How the child is behaving? All that included. I think at that time, taking some parenting counseling is very, very important. And because I generally am, I know there are a lot of people who do suggest counseling for the child. I wouldn't recommend counseling a child until the child is 16, right? Because it is too much of a trauma. Let's say you don't want to unravel something when the child can't handle it. So for a trauma counseling kind of thing for the child, wait till the child is 16. But before that, the parents need to be as equipped as they can. And particularly when the child comes home, now we know that there is a child. What are the child's challenges? What are the parents' challenges dealing with the child? Then I think keeping that in context, counseling helps a lot.
Okay. So another thing that the parents are concerned about is the educational milestones. Okay, so they are like, okay, if we are going to adopt an 8-year-old child, so that child should be in so and so grade, and I want my child to go in so and so school. But what exactly does happen? What the agencies, how are they managing the educational milestones of those children who are there in the agencies? So what are they doing about it? Can you just give us some, insight on that?
Sure. And actually, Sahana, I was going to talk more about it in, sort of the post-adoption tips and things like that. But since you have brought it up, so first of all, the type of education a child would have gone through is going to vary a lot. It's going to vary a lot because some good agencies may have provided them good education. Some other agencies may not have provided them good education. So there is no one thing that fits all. By the way, before I answer that, okay, so Sahana, do you want to announce this?
So, dear viewers, this meeting may go off. So I would request you all to, click the link which is given in the comment section. So you can, from there, you can actually resume the meeting. So there is a link already given in the Facebook page where you're watching this live session. So please click on that link if this meeting goes off. So it's my sincere request, because of the some technical glitches, we have to do, like the best whatever we have. So please do click on the link in case this meeting goes off. So Smriti, I think you can continue.
Sure. And if I get cut off, we'll continue.
Yeah, if it gets stuck, then we'll repeat it. No problem. Yeah.
Sure. So I would say, yeah, so you can expect a huge variety or range in how much the child has been educated at an agency. But basically, I would say, look, if you're thinking of adoption, if you're thinking of a child who was in a different environment, coming to your environment, just, don't make education a battleground, right? Wherever the child is at, first focus on bonding with the child. That is all you need to do for the first 3-4 months. Don't even think about whether the child knows the ABCs, or the child knows geography, or the child knows economics, right? Or what the status of math is. Your first job is to make the child comfortable. Make the child feel they can trust you. That is it. Like 4 months, do that. After that, you can assess which level that the child is at, and then go from there. Whatever the education level is, if the child is equal to their peers, you put them in that grade. If they're a little behind, you can put them in a different grade. If the child needs more help, you can get... So Sahana, we can get started?
Yeah, you can continue.
Okay. So you had asked me about education, like what should parents do? So just to kind of repeat, as I said, like the first 3 or 4 months when the child is home, maybe even 6 months, don't worry about education. That should be the last of your priorities. Focus on making the child feel comfortable, the child feel bonded, and the children, they have a lot to learn. They have to learn about life. Many of these children may have, never gone to a grocery shop. Many of these children may have never left the shelter. They have no world exposure. So just by being around them, by taking them to places, by taking them to a play area, by taking them grocery shopping with you, taking them to the mall or a short trip, you're opening up their mind. You're opening up their experiences. So I think the first few months should just be spent on that and not worrying about formal education. And then once that phase has happened, once you feel the child is comfortable and you're thinking about formal education, at that point, you can assess the level the child is at. Don't freak out if the child should be in 5th grade, but, is at 1st grade level, or the child should be in 2nd grade, but is at nursery level, or whatever the case may be. Children can make up these things easily. So, put them in a different grade, get a home tutor if you need to for some time, let the child study at their own pace. In fact, in like education circles, right? Like there are new philosophies, new things, which now say that children shouldn't be matched to what the grade levels are. Instead, the education should move according to the pace of the child. So anyways, there are a lot of various alternate models of education coming in. So if parents need to utilize that, use those. And, let's say your child academically never catches up to what you would consider their grade level of their peers, right? So what? The child will do something else in life, or they'll catch up like 2 years later. I remember reading this book, which said, I think the book is called Range. And I read it a while back. And in that, the author basically says that, look, once somebody has learned to read, right? They're done. What are they going to do after that? They're done learning to read. So if another child has learned to read 2 years before your child, why does it matter? Your child will also in another 2 years learn to read. It's not like there is anywhere to go beyond that in terms of learning to read. So, so it was sort of just an interesting, anecdote that even as a parent made me think not to fret about education or not to push my kids, but actually just make sure that they're learning something every day. And as long as they're learning something every day, they're thriving, they're making progress.
Okay, wonderful. There are parents, they worry, they're like, when there's a small baby who comes home, people are like more, acceptive about it. And there's an older kid who comes home, they're like, what should we tell to our neighbors? So, when the child, will take them to the play area, so there will be other kids. They are going to ask the child, like, who are you? From where have you come? So, parents worry about that, thinking that it may affect the child. So, how do we, what do you, advise the parents about that? Because it's not more than the child. The parents are worried, like, log kya kahenge, neighbors kya kahenge. If mere bachche se agar kuch sawal pucha, they ask something, what is going to happen? So, what would you advise the parents? about this particular issue, like, when, they are going out and they meet someone and suddenly they ask, like, who is he? Who is the child? Who is this child who is with you? So what would you advise?
I think I'll let Meera take this question first because my response is going to be a little bit more colorful. So,
I was going to say the same thing. So I think, are you asking two questions? One is about the academics, ki log kya kahenge, this child should be in 5th grade but is still in nursery, or is it about the fact that suddenly there is a child, an older child, and they're asking who's this child? Which one is it which is top of your mind? Because I'm just trying to figure out what is it that you want to know in terms of is it the education, or is it the fact that this older child has come home suddenly?
So the education part is already addressed, I suppose, like that. That is like you have to go as per the pace of the child, right? So that is still okay. Some parents, like, they say, like, we are staying in a community where we haven't, like, told them about it. We are going to adopt, and suddenly they bring home a child. So then they don't know how to, like, respond. Like, if they ask, then that is one question. Okay. The second part of the question that concerns parents, like, this is somebody who has asked me, who is planning to adopt an older child. So that's coming up. That question is coming up over here. So the second question is, when the child is in the play area, when the kids are going to ask, like, where were you all these days? Suddenly you're here. Where were you all these days? Considering the child has no language barrier, because that is also another part, that if you're going to adopt from a different state or different language, because India has multilingual, a nation. So these are the two questions. So, like, you can decide on which one you want to address first and second.
All right. So I'm addressing the child's question first. So if another child asks the child who was recently adopted, where were you before? I'm sure the child will actually say where the child was before, because children have no filters. I think adults are the ones who have those filters. So it's okay. What the child answers is not in the parent's control. So how they interact, the parent doesn't need to actually even involve in that. That's how, unless the other child is extremely rude and is saying very, very inappropriate, the parent shouldn't even be stepping in, right? That said, I hope they don't take the child to the playground the first day they've come to play and leave the child with other children the first day.
Correct.
So I hope parents are that sensible, because that is not done, right? That is not done because you don't know the child very well. You are actually, sending the child to play with another child is not a very good thing to do. So that said, so that is something which I want to answer about that. The first thing is, I think this is a very, very Indian psyche, right? That log kya kahenge.
Correct.
Bacha la liya, know how to hide this kid from everywhere. Will you be able to do it? I think practically it is not. Sorry, I am also going to be a little colorful, like Smriti said. She might be more. But how does it matter, log kya kahenge? The child is in your home. So kitna din bacha ke rakhoge? Right? How many days are you going to hide the child in your house? Right? So, and this is your child. As long as that confidence is there, it is mine. I take it out. I show it out with pride. No, I'm saying it because we don't know which child it is. Show the child with pride. And that is what I think we need to, I think that has to settle in our mind before we even think of adopting. Leave alone an older child. I think this is about adoption, period. Right? It is about when you adopt. So, if it's a baby, it's okay. Where will you say the babies come from?
Oh, they have other stories over there.
Oh, yeah, I know there are stories, but I'm just saying that it is very weird that we are doing that even now, and I think that we'll have to. It is hopefully people who are adopting are not in that mindset. I know there are probably about 20 to 30%. But if they are thinking on those lines, they shouldn't be adopting. I'm sorry, I've said this quite a few times, but that's the way I feel. That you have to be extremely clear about how you present the child to the world, how you're talking to the child about adoption, and how the child is getting introduced to the fact that I am adopted and it is great that I'm adopted. So I think that's something I do believe in. Yeah.
Okay.
Smriti, you can add more color.
No. It was good. So, like Sahana, you said, right? How do you tell other people? Why can't you just be honest? Right? Like by you as in not
correct.
Any adoptive parent, right? So if you have a 5-year-old with you, or if suddenly a 15-year-old with you, and people like, where did this child come from? You just say, we just adopted our son and daughter, and we are so happy about it. That's it. right? We just adopted her and we are so happy about it. Please meet our daughter. This is her name, right? And same for the son. Like, I don't know why is that such a difficult answer?
Correct. Probably that is, some mindset that is deep rooted and people are not able to come out of it. Maybe slowly things are definitely changing. So I think,
one thing
please.
I know we all acknowledged it's more of an Indian deep-rooted mindset, but I do want to say, right, like once we have crossed a certain age, right, once we have crossed 25 or 30 or some age, and if we are still worrying about, what will our neighbors say, what will this guy say, what will that side say, I think we need to first get some therapy or help for ourselves, get that out of our system, and then move on with adoption or parenting or whatever else we want to do in life. Because I think if as a person we are stuck in that place, it's not healthy for anybody.
So, all right. So we have had a very healthy and very insightful discussion so far. So I think now audience can ask questions to our eminent speakers, Smriti and Meera. So I'm sure they'll be glad to answer your queries. So, because whatever queries I had, in person, or probably whatever I could, inherit from other parents, I have already asked that. So, audience, please come ahead and you can ask your queries, your questions. Okay, so we have a question from one of our audience, and they're asking, are there any specific aspects that one needs to be watchful about to ensure that older children are emotionally healthy?
Yes, I think, well, irrespective of whether they were adopted or not, we have to be watchful of older children being emotionally healthy. I'm not trying to trivialize it, because we tend to forget that after a while children don't need us. That's not true. That's not true. I think if you're a parent, your children will need you as long as you are alive, as long as we are alive, right? So I think the specific aspects, especially with adoption, again, I'm not going to trivialize it so much, is that I think to be watchful for is some of the trauma, the leftover trauma, right, they've had, and how they are behaving because of that trauma. So children are like, you brought them home and they're a little older. How will they, for them to express their trauma, give them that space, right? So that's why I said earlier also, it is very important that you're present to the child, right? So some behaviors or something you might do might remind them of some past thing, and they might go into a different behavioral aspect of their personality. So you just have to be watchful, maybe talk through them, and if they don't want to talk, I think just be, right? So I think to watch out for if specifically that, and as Smriti had mentioned earlier, international parents do take counseling, how to handle children who have undergone trauma. So we don't, counseling and training, we don't do any of that, right? As she said, here is your child, even if it is 15-year-old, here is your child, take her home or take him home. So I think that's very important, that just be emotionally be very aware that these people are very emotionally aware as well, right? They'll be watching you as much as you are watching them. So I think that is something is very, very important to remember, and ensure that there's a communication channel open after a while, so that they can express that they are feeling that emotional upheaval in them.
Right. So we have a second question. I think it's a very simple question, but very important as well. Is there any age limit to adopt older children?
Yes, 18. 18 is the age limit. So as up to 18 years of age, you can adopt a child.
Wonder if this is a question to ask the parents' age.
Oh, yeah, parents' age.
Parents. Okay, got it. I was like, kids' age.
No.
So, Kara has some very specific...
I think I mean to ask probably do they have an age limit? Like, for example, if the parent is 30 years old, so can they adopt a 15-year-old? So probably I think that's what they mean from this question.
Got it. So there are two types of age limits to consider. One is, so the Kara currently requires that the parent and the child have a 25-year-old age gap. So basically, then if somebody is 40, they can adopt a child up to, for example, 15 years of age. So you have to have that 25-year age gap. Now, Kara does, I would say, relax that requirement. So people, so if somebody doesn't have that 25-year age gap, but they have a 23-year age gap, they can apply to CARA for a relaxation. So that is a possibility. Now, then the other type of age limit is the parental age, like how old can a parent be? And CARA has very specific limits there. In terms of, if you, depending on which age category you want to adopt in, there is a specific limit. I'll just mention the upper limit here. The very, very upper limit is that the joint age of parents cannot be more than 110 years. And of a single parent cannot be more than 55 years. So as long as a couple's joint age is less than 110, and as long as an individual's age is less than 55, they can adopt.
Okay. So I think these details are there on the CARA website. So if they can log into cara.nic.in, so they can probably look for the eligibility criteria in that, and they would find this, right? Okay. So the third question is very important. Like, where do we get counseling from? Pre and post and during whatever the counseling which is essential. So where do we get this counseling from?
I was going to say me, but no.
No, you should say that, Meera. You should say. Well, you do counsel a lot of parents for older child adoption. So yes, Meera is where you get counseling from.
No, I think Smriti also does that. So both of us do counsel, and I think you can reach out to us, and we would be glad to help that process and see that more children, older children are adopted and brought into the family. Yes.
And there is also a few organizations that offer counseling. So there is Families of Joy Foundation, that is Delhi based, and they have counselors across India. And then there is Padme, which is Bangalore based. And I may be missing out on a couple more, but there are NGOs who specifically focus on adoption counseling. So Sahana, perhaps later on in the comments, in the YouTube comments area, you can put names of some organizations.
Sure. I can just make those comments so that people can look at it later on also, so that they are aware where they can reach out for counseling. Okay. So the next one is, they say, like, in older children adoption, it's our personal opinion that getting a child from the same state, basically if both parents and child speak the same verbal language, it would help connect easily. So this is more like a confirmation, so they want to confirm probably like what they feel like. Okay,
so I would say yes, maybe initially it will make things a bit easier if the parents and the child spoke the same language, but I would say it is definitely not a requirement. We see so many children who get adopted again internationally, and they don't speak the language of the parent who's adopting them. Like I remember like a 7-year-old who got adopted in France, or like a 14-year-old who's getting adopted in America. So there are kids who get adopted into international countries, special need children, older children, and so on, who don't speak the language of the parents who are adopting them. But and that's not a showstopper. In fact, I wouldn't say that people should only adopt from the same language state. I think people should be open to all states, all children. The thing is, though, initially you will have to put that extra effort. That will be one extra variable in the adoption that you have to account for. So if you're adopting a child who doesn't speak the same language as you, make sure to learn some basic sentences in the child's language. Make sure to get like an app on your phone that translates between the child's language and your language. And once the child comes home, see if you can communicate better with like in other ways. Language is one way of communication, but you communicate in other ways, and kids are so smart. They pick up languages so quickly, especially if, that's their way to connect with their parents, they will pick up the language. So again, I think if somebody wants to do that, it's not a parameter in my mind, but if somebody wants to do that, it is of course their own personal choice.
Okay, great. So the next question is like, what is the waiting period to adopt an older kid?
Domestically, it's very less based on the age of the child. Again, there's, I think, waiting time. Smriti, correct me if I'm wrong, till 10 years old, we do have waiting time. But I think beyond 10, there are a lot of children in CARA who can be brought home immediately.
Yeah. So no
waiting time. This is available in immediate placement also, like most of the children are about 10 and above.
Correct.
So technically there is no waiting period if you look at it.
Yes, for 10 and above, I would say no waiting period. You have to go to the immediate placement list, and that is accessible to anybody who registers with CARA and gets their home study done. Right. And for kids under 10, There is a bit of a waiting period, but I think it's interesting. From 0 to 6 years of age, I believe that's where the waiting period is the highest. Then between 6 to 10, it drops. It becomes much lesser. And then after 10, there is no waiting period.
And even siblings, actually, the waiting period is quite less. After 4 to 6, that age group.
After 4 years of age.
After 4 years of age,
yeah.
very less. Yes.
Okay. So we are waiting for more questions. So we'll keep the window open for another 5 minutes for any more queries. So.
And while we are waiting for that, Sahana, can I address
Yes.
one point?
Sure, definitely, Smriti.
So post-adoption, we specifically talked about education. There is another thing that I have seen parents sort of get a bit stressed about, and which is discipline. So because a new child comes, the child has their own previous habits, their previous way of doing things. And, some parents freak out, like if it's like, okay, this is how we do things in our house. This is what we eat. This is when we sleep. This is how we talk. This is what we do, right? And the child is not used to those things. And they're trying to inform, or how much TV time you watch. Like there are a lot of things that that a discipline a parent may have in their own home prior to the new child coming in, and they may have enforced that with their biological children, for example. So in that scenario, I would say when the child first comes home, you have to focus on attachment over discipline. Attachment comes first. So if the child eats some extra junk food, watches some extra TV, the child sleeps at a different time and doesn't do a bunch of other things, that's okay. You obviously need to have boundaries. You need to have certain sensible boundaries, but don't go like discipline crazy on day one. Focus on attachment, and then discipline as gradually increase it. Start with some basic guidelines, and then slowly build up the discipline that you're used to in your house. Like, don't put that on the child on day one.
Right. Okay, we have 2 more questions. I think we'll take it up. Is there a possibility that post the foster care, an older child can refuse the adoption during the court hearing, probably because they do not want to leave the child care center? How do the PAPs handle the possibility of such a situation during the foster care period? Like the child refusing the adoption. Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So it's rare, but it can happen. So because the child does have that right to say no during a court proceeding. So in terms of how do you handle such a situation before it happens, I would say the foster period is for connecting with the child. So if the child has gone and said no to the judge during a court hearing, meaning that child did not connect with the parents in the foster care period. So all you can do during the foster care period is try your best to connect with the child. Try your best to ensure and explain to the child what the life could be like after adoption. Make sure again they start trusting you. And if they miss the children that they used to live within the child shelter, have video calls with them. Like make the child shouldn't feel that they'll be completely cut off from their previous life. So if the child ever wants to visit, meet, and do all those things, you can encourage that. So those small things will make the child feel that you're not going to completely cut them off from their previous life if the child is mentally invested in that previous life. So as the more the parents are understanding towards that part of it, hopefully it would help the child, feel more secure with the parents, and hence higher the chance of saying yes in a court proceeding. But I see this essentially coming up with, perhaps teenage kids. And in those scenarios. So I think the parents have to be very mindful of what the child is thinking.
Right.
To add to that, I think with teenage kids, they form these friendships and they don't like leaving those friendships very easily. So I think to keep that friendship connection, maybe a phone call here, there with some of the friends they made in the a shelter where they were living with, I think gives them a sort of a continuity, that security that, okay, I won't lose my friends. There's a whole shift of place, and environment. So maybe that will also help, though a lot of parents will hesitate, to say that, okay, how can they be in touch with, a child from the shelter and stuff. But I think it's important.
Okay, so we'll take up our last question because we are also running out of time. So, but this last question, we will definitely take it up very quickly. So why aren't all the orphanages giving kids for adoption?
So that's a big question. So I would say, there has been a lot of change in how adoption is viewed in our country in perhaps the last 5 years. So orphanages in our country have traditionally been sort of these permanent places, and they have been seen as, it's been seen as a good thing that a child is kept as an orphanage. And I think that mindset is very entrenched in orphanages, in the public, that, oh, if a child is vulnerable, if a child doesn't have parents, the child can grow up in an orphanage. We don't respect a child's right to family as a country. And that's the same issue with the orphanages. They feel they are feeding the child, that's enough. And they don't understand that the child must reach a family, because a family is for life. I think that's why kids are not giving children in orphanages. It's a huge mindset change for them, that they haven't made that change. Secondly, I would say there is very lax enforcement. So even though now we have laws that require orphanages to put eligible children in the legal adoption pool. Today, if an orphanage doesn't abandon an orphan child in the legal adoption process, the orphanage can be fined, they can be closed. But none of these penalties are ever enforced. So if they're not being enforced, then orphanages will keep doing what they're doing. And a lot of, the way they get grants and donation depends upon keeping children. So the orphanages in our country have to really evolve into, transition centers, where children come in and, they get processed, and the next path for them to finding a family, that's what the purpose of the orphanages should be. But that's a change we, as a public, as a country, have to push for.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Meera and Smriti, for such an insightful session and so much information. I'm sure the audience has definitely benefited with whatever the queries they have asked, and whatever, the information that we could gather about the older children adoptions. So we will come up with more live sessions like this about different topics. So don't forget to follow Mom Story by Sahana on Facebook, on Instagram and YouTube, because you will get notification the moment we are going to plan any such insightful sessions for all of you. So thank you so much for being patient with us, wherein in between there was some technical glitch, but still all the audiences, they stayed with us. Thank you so much. Once again, thank you, Smriti. Thank you, Meera, for your valuable time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having around. Yeah.
Thank you, Sahana.
Thanks a lot.